The first question is, can the legislature change or vote out AUMA? And while you're at that, also explain the simple majority vote and what's the process.
The provisions for amendment allow for amendment of Section 5 and 6 by simple majority vote, the remainder by a supermajority, but it's got to be within the intent and purpose of the initiative. So those things become important words when you look at how initiatives have been interpreted when they're being amended. So I guess that my knee-jerk is to say that no, it's not going to be legislated out of existence, but that doesn't mean it can't be significantly modified over the next decade or so. And in fact, there is a provision under the tax part of this that sunsets the 2/3 vote for some of the provisions of raising taxes, that all they have to have is a simple majority after 10 years, but you've got to maintain the funding at that level.
I think that there is so much potential for graft, so much potential for ego, factionalism, and a turf dynamic that I wouldn't be surprised if anyone at any time tries to change, amend this proposition. There's so much money and influence that's going on right behind me, and there's so much involvement now with the political parties that I would be very aware and concerned that this would be changed. We're in such a fractured environment right now, and I don't believe the polls are a 60-40. I believe that we're looking at about a 52-48 right now. This is not a done deal. So you're going to hear a lot of political talk. You're going to hear a lot of promises. And you've already seen how lawyers are peppered on both sides. And the lawyer, a skilled one, can make any argument. So you might be surprised today that I don't speak so much on the policy, but I speak more on the politics and the fracturing of our beloved community. And I'm asking everybody here to remain civil, but have a robust conversation, but understand that lives are at stake. There is no more important time to stop this giveaway to Big Pot. And I really look forward in the next 2 hours to going into more detail about the ramifications and the destruction of Prop 215 that will occur if this is passed. But I want to again say that let's maintain our civility and understand that this is going to be very passionate, but at the end of it, we're all friends, we're all a family. As dysfunctional as it may be, especially on Facebook, but we all want the same thing. My name is Kevin Saunders, it's not Kevin Sabet. I'm not endorsed by the GOP, I am not endorsed by the CHP. I fought my entire life standing up against the war on drugs apparatus. What you see here are 3 activists, Dave Hodges, Sean Kiernan, Kevin Saunders, and I'm channeling Letitia Pepper, Patrick Moore, Donna Lambert, Jeff Clark, the people who have spent a lifetime. Think about the people who are saying no, taking nothing away from the people saying yes, but think of the team that is saying no. Think of the thousands of years of experience, not the $1 million that Sean Parker has put in Toma.
Yeah, I hope it changes, because I don't know, and what I'd like to know is if the people on the no side are on the no side because they don't want rec, or are they on the no side because they don't like the way this bill is formed? Because I'm somebody who's been on the fence myself about this. This isn't, to me, a big pharma bill. This isn't plant freedom. This isn't getting us any closer to plant freedom. Would you folks raise your hand if you believe in rec, you just don't like this bill? Could we see a show of hands? You want rec. Okay, so, God, this is lovely. We're no longer fighting about whether we should have it or not. It's how we don't have it. So even the no people aren't really against cannabis. They're against the big boot of government. So in my opinion, what we're looking at, and the reason why I'm sitting at the pro table instead of the no table, because I could be easily sitting over there with those guys. But the reason why I'm sitting over here is because I look at it like the cannabis plant and its family have been slaves, humans, just like human slaves. They've been in shackles, in the dark, cursed, starved, no nutrients, no respect. So I see Prop 64 as like the other slave-owning white guy who's enlightened, who says to this other white, oh, sorry, I don't mean to be racist. I meant to do this without color. I was doing a slave analogy, trying to do it without color. But says to the other guy, look, you starve your slaves. You need to get them in lighter shackles. You need to get them in the sunshine. You need to get them some food and some nourishment. And so what I see is track and trace is new kinds of shackles. The way I see MRSA is a new kind of way of criminalizing and being mean to our plant and the plant people. But here's the point. Even though it's not great, so I do hope, in answer to your question, that MRSA changes a lot. I hope everything changes, because a 45% tax at the end of the day isn't going to get rid of the black market, and it's not going to get rid of our corruption. So there's much wrong with this, but there's enough right with it that I can justify it as a next step. And then we have to commit ourselves to 10 years of activism to making them do it right. And at the end of the day, that's where we sit.
The answer is absolutely yes. They can change. I mean, it's really important people understand that a proposition in the state of California is superior to legislation passed by the Assembly, the Senate, and signed by governor. So basically what you have with this is any rule they make, like when SB 420 plant counts were eliminated, ruled unconstitutional, it violated Prop 215. So the court said, sorry legislature, sorry governor, you don't get to violate the rights that are in the Constitution for patients to use and grow cannabis. The problem with AUMA is it is a voter-passed initiative that gives the power to change the laws, not with the people, but back with the legislatures, the Senate, and the governor. And that is unacceptable to us veterans, because I can tell you one thing right now. You're asking us to trust the government with our health care? That's not going to happen. We know how bad that looks. Okay? So I appreciate what Sister said over there and the other people. I think what we have here is we all want legalized recreational. There's some of us who want better. And I think some of our brothers and sisters suffer the psychological term, the Stockholm Syndrome, which means they love their captors, or they're thanking them for giving them a little bit and saying, thank you so much. No way. This is about freedom. This is about our freedom, and we're not going to let these wonderful people back here in the state capitol violate that. So no on 64, because regardless of what it says today, we're giving the power back to these people, and they care about one thing only, money. And my patients and my veterans, they don't have that money. And my patients and my veterans are going to be criminalized. And they talk about criminalized, they talk about saving criminalized. Look at every state in the union, Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. Black and Latino arrests for teens are up, while white teens are plummeting. In decriminalized New York City, in New York City, where they decriminalized it, white people don't get arrested anymore. 90% of all marijuana arrests were black people in the first part of 2016. We have a policing issue. That needs to be addressed. And don't hold out promise. I love when white, middle class, and upper class people come in and saying they're here to save the poor and minority communities that they've been ignoring for years. This ain't about it. And you want to say the NAACP is for this? I know the NAACP. I know Alice Huffman. She's a wonderful lady. But you're sorely, sorely misinformed if you think the NAACP supports this because it's a fight because of the drug issue and marijuana in the inner city. They're for this because they're part of the DNC, and there's been promises that have been made in this building by Jerry Brown to all the special interests to give them a little piece of the pie at our expense.
Question had to do with, can the Prop 64 be changed after it is passed? It does have some amendment sections. There is the Section 10 that says a majority vote can amend Sections 5 and 6. Section 5 is the regulations having to do with medical marijuana recommendations, records confidentiality, fees, child custody rights, and federal rescheduling. Section 6 is the regulation and safety for commercial marijuana, so it has to do with licensing and fees and application process. that can be modified by a majority. But these modifications by majority must comport with the Section 3 intent and purposes. And in these Section 3 intent and purposes, paragraph K says to strengthen the state's existing medical marijuana system. So it would be hard to make a change that would make that weaker. Also, having to do with amendments, the majority vote only applies to that Section 5 and 6. It does not apply to the rights in the Compassionate Use Act, and there are 9 different clauses within Prop 64 that protect the Compassionate Use Act. The purpose and intents, Section 3L says adults will have the right to possess, purchase, and grow non-medical marijuana, so they couldn't pass something that takes away your grow, possession, or purchase rights. Section 3M says reasonably regulate cultivation of non-medical and only to ban outdoor, and no city or county may completely prohibit that within a private residence. Prop 64 passes, you get the guarantee of at least a 6-plant garden minimum.
The things that are most important to change are not changeable. The possession limits and a lot of the other things, like the fact that we're going to have a divided state and local regulatory system, which is the biggest problem we have in medical cannabis today, where the state regulates different than the city, and we have this mess from city to city. So that can't be changed without going back to the voters. And many of the worst parts of it can only be changed if it actually fails. Basically, it's got to fail. More people have to go to jail. The business has to not work so well, and then they have an opportunity to make some of the most needed changes. But what you're looking at with Prop 64 is really an easier way to put people in jail. What's going to happen is anybody that has beyond the possession limits is facing jail time, and it's a 3 strikes sort of system. So the first time, it might be a little slap on the wrist, but if you're somebody who works in the underground market or even works in this gray area medical that we've been existing, you're going to jail, and there's nothing that we can do about that until enough people end up going to jail that we're able to say, look, this isn't working, you guys have to change it. So yes, it can be changed, but the things that are most important to change in it can't be. At least not until it completely falls apart. So what we've got is a real mess on our hands. If this thing passes, we're going to set back the California industry over 20 years. It's going to be something that nobody recognizes. We have had since '97 freedom in what many people see it, being able to hang out and have big events. But these things are going to be completely different with Prop 64.